Hi, everybody. I'm Essex County Commissioner Brendan Gill, also honored to be the chair of the Montclair Dems. We're excited to present the interviews with Mary Alice Williams. This year, there is no more important election across the country than the race to become the next governor of the state of New Jersey. I'm proud to lead this great statewide organization made up of over 12,000 volunteers who help to elect our Democratic candidates up and down the ballot. In order to educate our members, as well as the public, the Montclair Dems is proud to produce a series of long-form, one-on-one interviews with all 6 Democratic candidates for governor. We are privileged to have legendary broadcast journalist Mary Alice Williams conducting these interviews. Today we are joined by Congressman Josh Gottheimer. Congressman Gottheimer is a 5-term member of Congress from Wyckoff who represents New Jersey's 5th Congressional District. Without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce Mary Alice Williams and Congressman Josh Gottheimer.
Thank you, Brendan. Congressman Josh Gottheimer, 8 years representing North Jersey citizens in Congress. You started the Problem Solvers Caucus. You've become a real force in national politics. Why do you want to be a state governor?
Because imagine we brought that same force to help and make our state even better. I love Jersey, from here, actually Essex County, born and bred, 4th generation Jersey, and this is the best place to raise a family, and I couldn't ask for a better place to raise my kids. But the bottom line is it's too expensive, and I want to make it so that everybody's kids can stay here and that people can afford to retire here.
And we're going to get to that in a second.
Why.
But
we can do it.
What challenge best in your life, in your work, best prepared you to be governor?
So I think, growing up here, you realize that it's an incredible place. I got a great education, a great public school education. I went to West Essex High School. And then I left for a little bit, and leaving Jersey is not easy, but I came right back because you realize it's an amazing state. And I think along the way, I think about some rough times my family had, rough times that you just go through in life. But what I found, which is, when I got to Washington and I learned this, I worked for President Clinton and President Obama, you realize that people say that you can't do stuff. And I realized like impossible things. They say things are impossible. And what I realized at some point was things are not impossible. If you're willing to just keep going, and which is what I respect about so many families who face adversity in our state, right? Like if you're just willing to just keep fighting and realize just like things are totally doable, if you're tenacious and tough and work at it, they told me we couldn't pass the infrastructure bill, that we couldn't expand the child tax credit, that was impossible, that you couldn't get a gun safety bill done. I'll tell you, getting Republicans on board on a bipartisan gun safety bill, the first one in 30 years, they said that was impossible. But what I learned is if you just keep fighting and going for it, and realizing you're out here to protect people and stand up for them, you can really do anything. And listen, my job's easy compared to what a lot of people in New Jersey have to deal with every single day with a tough economic situation, tough family situation.
The buzzword for the 2025 campaign is affordability, right? Property taxes are up, utility costs are rising 20%. Seriously?
More than that.
How do you make living here more affordable?
I'm the only one who's actually, talking affordability is nice. Actually doing something about it is different. I'm the only one who's actually put out a tax cut plan that talks about tax cut plan that talks about actually goes through step by step how we're going to get taxes and costs down and how you pay for it, which it's 40 plus pages long. You'd love it. It's a page turner. It's at joshforjersey.com, but I can talk about it if you want.
I'm going to ask you to talk about it under this heading. Between federal funding freezes and outright cuts, the state, which already has the highest business and property taxes in the nation,
America,
could lose $27.5 billion under federal budget cuts. And you're talking about cutting taxes? How's that going to work? How does the math work?
First of all, Trump hasn't met somebody as tough as me who's going to fight back against this stuff every single day. And I don't believe, because you go to look at these red states, they can't afford to do what Trump is talking about doing. It would destroy Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security. And these states actually and I said this to the Speaker of the House, you get more Medicaid dollars than we do. And so
You're the one who called them
right,
moocher
so
states.
these moocher states take far more than they get. And they would lose about $18 billion in the Louisiana budget if he goes through with this and hurt his people. So we fight them every day. We fight them in court. I'm fighting them in Congress. We take them on. But the bigger question is, how do you actually, as I said before, people say this is impossible. But if the way I've actually laid out a plan where you can afford to cut property taxes by about 15%, cut income taxes for middle class families, help seniors afford to stay here with a senior bonus when they turn 70. And we do it by, one example is New York. If you work in New Jersey but work for a New York business, they take all of the income tax. We lose $4 billion a year on that alone. That's just one example in my tax cut plan. There's so much we can do to make our state run efficiently.
You got to get New York to agree to that.
Yeah,
That's
but by the way, not really, because in court you'll win this. If you look at other states, they've done it, and you basically say to New York, "You want to do this stuff?" Well, there's plenty of places that we do share, like on the Port Authority, and we've got this cooperative relationship. They have not treated it cooperatively. We pay 70% of the tolls and get 40% of the capital projects. So why do we keep doing these things with New York and not standing up to them? The same way, by the way, New York and California have done things where they looked and say, how can we buy things smarter as a state versus buying things town by town, as you know we do. We buy like toilet paper and the salt on the roads, and we negotiate things 564 town by town. That makes no sense. Other states buy things as a state, so you get the best prices. There's lots of things we do in New Jersey that can protect our values and the things we love and want to do, but run things smarter, because this is not working.
Are we going to lose anything in your plan?
No, you actually just run it smarter. Here's what we're losing, though, as you probably know. AARP put out a study a couple weeks ago. 41% of seniors in the state of New Jersey say they're considering leaving because they can't afford the property taxes. We are net losing people, not gaining people in the state of New Jersey. We're losing jobs, good paying jobs for people, not gaining. We're the #1 out-migration state in the country, and the #1, 7 years running. And you know why? Because, and it's not going to become a surprise to you, because they say, I can't afford the taxes. I want to stay here, but my kids can't afford to stay here because rents keep going up and up and up. And the taxes are killing me, so seniors are leaving. We got to fix this, otherwise we'll have no money to actually invest in the values that I believe deeply in and taking care of people. And so we can't just keep doing this. It's crazy to keep doing what we're doing. And then you're going to raise, the utility bills, you talked about 20%. That's on top of 20% already in 1 year. PSE&G will have raised your electric bill 38.5% in 1 year. If you're on a fixed income, how are you supposed to afford that? You're a hard-pressed family trying to make ends meet.
And how much sway does the governor have over rates that are set by PSE&G?
Well, you appoint the people who approve these rate increases at the BPU, and also you got to actually get more energy. You have to, there's a consortium we work with a bunch of other states. Since 2021, this consortium that gets the electricity, gets more resources to put onto the grid. Since 2021, they haven't approved a single new project. That's criminal to me.
Are you talking about solar and wind?
Yes, anything. Biomass, nuclear, anything. That's a group called PJM. It's this consortium. That to me is outrageous, because you've got more demands on energy coming and we don't have enough supply. And so you know where we're buying our energy from now? Instead of when you have to import, instead of being someone has enough of your own energy, coal from West Virginia. That's where actually we get most of our peak power from when we don't have enough. The dirtiest stuff around. So as somebody who loves the environment and is trying to figure out how to do this cleaner and smarter, that's as a result because we don't have enough energy.
Let's talk about housing. How do you make housing here more affordable so people can stay, so people can come raise their families?
I mean, and unfortunately, it comes back to this whole supply-demand problem again, right? Where we have a lot of demand and we're 220,000 units of housing short of where we should be.
Are you talking about general housing or affordable housing?
So they're all connected. We need to have a massive amount more of housing that's affordable for New Jersey. Sorry, go ahead.
The Mount Laurel decision required that each town provide a fair share of affordable housing, and last year's law streamlined that process and then hit legal and political obstacles, right? So nothing happened.
We need to build more housing that's affordable. That is not the reason why the prices keep going up, rents are up 33% in the last 5 years, is because we don't have enough of it. And there's a couple things that I'm going to do besides giving people a property tax break, and also I have a rental rebate annually for people to help them pay for rents. We have to make building of housing that are affordable much faster. Not only so you can use office parks that are empty, you do more stuff near mass transit. We have a lot of government property that's not being used. We can get housing that's affordable on there. But you got to speed the whole process up. New Jersey takes an average of 6 to 7 years to build a new project. Other states take half that, 2 to 3 years, because we have so much muck of bureaucracy and it's not streamlined at all. Yeah, but every other state, again, this goes back to people say it's impossible. All these states have figured out how to do this faster because they put some states, which I'm going to do, put all the stakeholders around one table: the town, the state, the county, the Department of Transportation, all the people who talk and say, okay, everyone show up at one time. If you don't show up, you give up your right to complain later, because everyone 2 years later is like, wait a second, I found something. So they hold up all these projects, and then you pay, because if it takes 7 years to build versus 4 years to build or 3 years, they build that extra time into the cost of the rent or buying or selling the house. And we just got to do this faster and smarter so people can get into housing that's affordable and that we have more of it.
Housing has a major impact on our schools, which it's been determined face de facto segregation. The Trump administration cut $1.2 billion in education funding, closed the program that funded Head Start, and another that helped Jersey farmers provide fresh food to schools.
School breakfast and school lunch.
Yes.
Awful.
Our schools are the magnet that draws so many families to our state. How do you improve and bolster and protect public schools?
So as a product of public schools, West Essex, go Knights. So our schools, I think what you just said is spot on. Our schools, like our values, to me, are one of our greatest competitive advantages, right? Reproductive freedom, clean air, clean water, are phenomenal public schools. If we don't protect those and make sure that we keep them strong for everybody, no matter where you live and where you're from, then we lose a great competitive advantage of what draws people to our state and keeps them here. So the school funding formula it has to be redone, because right now certain schools and communities are being helped, others are being left behind. We have disproportionately affecting schools with lower income kids are getting hit the hardest and not getting the level of education that they deserve. So we got to look at the whole way our funding is happening in the state of New Jersey and looking at these schools. We also have to have universal pre-K, in my opinion, for everybody in these communities, and all-day kindergarten, because that's still not universal in every place you go in the state of New Jersey.
Why is it different from district to district? And do we have too many school districts?
Well, I think we certainly, on the administrative side, the top layer can have a lot more efficiency.
Yeah.
We have more superintendents than mayors in the state of New Jersey. So you have so much, I want to spend money on the teachers, on the kids. No kid should go hungry in school ever. And right now, not only what Trump is doing, but for even before Trump, you've got some of our communities that don't provide school breakfast and school lunch for kids who need it. And the federal government, as somebody who's a big champion of this, gives you money for it. And you've got towns who won't take it because they don't want to look bad. And so kids go hungry. It's outrageous. And so I think no kid should be hungry. We should make sure they have a great education. And we're going to have to rethink the model to keep it fresh going forward. And that means we got to look at all solutions.
Let's talk about health care. NJ Family Care Health Program relied on more than $14 billion in federal funds. That's now in jeopardy. The Trump administration and Congress, the pals you work with, are considering killing Medicaid, which more than 2 million people in New Jersey rely on.
Yeah, that's outrageous.
What do you do about that?
I think this is what I was saying a little bit before, between Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. They're looking at massive.
As governor, could you fill the gap for all the federal funds?
I think a good leader is going to have to figure out how we're going to fill this gap. But I'll be honest with you, adding a $21 billion new addition to our state government is going to be a gigantic hurdle, by the way, not just for us, but for all states, which is why I think that you have such disagreement among the Republicans over what are you going to do on that, because doing that to the state of New Jersey or to their own states is insane. And it'll massively hurt not just kids who rely on it and families, but seniors who rely on it. It'd be devastating. And a lot of the stuff that they've proposed, not that, some stuff they're trying to do unilaterally and are doing unilaterally, other stuff they've just thrown out there. And we in Congress have allocated resources for it, which is why we're fighting, and we're fighting in the courts. And as governor, I'm going to double the legal fund because we're going to have to take Trump on all these fronts and say, I don't think so, man. And he's really losing a lot of these cases, but you're going to have to fight these things because if they're too weak, the Republicans in Congress to take them on and stand up to Trump, we're going to have to find every vehicle, and governors are the place where some of the biggest fights are going to be.
New Jersey law protects women's health care by guaranteeing the right to abortion. New Jersey stockpiling abortifactants. Should the law be changed in any way?
Well, I think we should amend the Constitution in the state to make sure that it's a protected right to get an abortion. And I think these fights, under this administration on abortion are going to go on and on because they're going to try to throw everything at stopping women's health care, women's reproductive freedom, IVF, you name it. And we're going to have to fight hard. The good news is that Jersey's been such a great leader on this. We're just going to have to keep that up and double down and help other states where women are not as lucky, right? And you think about things like not just medical care, but what you teach doctors, we're teaching physicians, the next generation. In certain states, they're not teaching anything about reproductive health to physicians because it's not allowed, which is happening, which is great. And the good news is another argument to get your medical training in New Jersey, but we got to help doctors in other states too, because
agree to become OBGYNs.
Yeah, and get trained properly, right? I mean, you think you can't have this divide where we're not teaching people about science, facts, what democracy is about, right? I mean, you think about some of the major things that are under attack right now in this country.
Transit. Corporate taxes and federal funds pay for highway repair, bridge replacement. Amtrak pays for NJ Transit. How much power would you as governor have to improve New Jersey's infrastructure, transit infrastructure, transportation infrastructure?
This has been a huge focus of mine as a congressman. Help negotiate, and pass the infrastructure bill, which is fixing a bunch of our roads and rails and building a gateway train tunnel between New York and New Jersey. You can't have a top competitive state if you have a second-rate transit system. We used to be the envy of the country right now, and right now, as you know, we're not the envy of the country when it comes to our transit system. You've seen these summers of hell where people are stuck and they're late. They should be reimbursed when your train is hours late or you're stuck on your train. But the bottom line is there's a couple major problems. One, Amtrak actually controls, you mentioned, controls the rails that we're then pay. We pay Amtrak $200 million a year,
right,
for broken rails and the broken cat cables, the ones that come down. We should not be paying them $200 million a year if they're failing. That's a joke. That's got to stop. Secondly, and the governor's placed these orders, which is the right thing. We need to have more rail cars, the newer rail cars. A lot of our rail cars are old and break down all the time because we don't have new ones. So orders have been placed. We need those new rail cars to keep up. We also need new buses because a lot of our buses are old and break down all the time, and that's a disaster. We're going to have a new bus terminal soon, so that's good news. But we have a lot of places where there's no rail, and you need buses, and we need more new buses. I also think we should be adding a bunch more ferry service because you can move a lot of people. It's much less expensive, and we can do it fast. And so that's another thing I'm going to be pushing for. But
I'm not hearing you say is where you should widen all the highways.
No, but you can't ignore your highways. Like what lots of people drive and have no access to mass transit. I represent parts of Bergen County, Sussex County, Passaic County, where there is no mass transit.
You've got the Route 80 sinkhole, right?
You've got the sinkhole. I mean, the sinkhole. But listen, you have to invest in infrastructure because if you ignore it, it's not one of these things you can ignore and hope it gets better. It falls apart. So you can't just put Scotch tape on stuff and hope it'll be better. You actually have to invest in it. So a governor's got to have a vision for how we're going to get people around. And by the way, South Jersey too massively needs investment they're left behind often on infrastructure. And that makes no sense either because we're not taking advantage of all the great parts of our economic potential in our state. And but you need good mass transit. It's critical.
Immigration. The Trump administration is investigating Governor Murphy over his immigration policies and wants to allow ICE to expand a facility in Newark to detain more immigrants as a prison. How will you ensure protection and due process for the undocumented people we have here?
So Trump did from the beginning, like I guess that was on basically day one of his so far failed, miserable 100 days, he actually said, I'm going to do roundups, mass roundups at churches and kids at schools and of restaurants, right, of innocent undocumented people. And we have a directive in the state that says absolutely not. You're not coming here and rounding up innocent undocumented people. And not only will I continue that, I think we have to make sure it's enforced. And we got to do right by people who are just doing right by their families and our state. And so we're going to have to be, again, it's another place where you've got to be tough and stand up and be unafraid. Be tenacious and not get pushed around. You got to stand up to Trump.
Governors have that much power?
On this front, governors have a ton of power. You're going to get into a battle with them.
Isn't ICE a federal agency?
Yeah, but you come to our state and you're going to think you're going to come to a schoolhouse. We're going to put our own people outside that schoolhouse. I'll take that fight.
Climate. Congress cut $217 million in federal funding. You know that. $217 million in federal funding for 212 projects in New Jersey, cutting along with them all the jobs that those would have created. How do you resurrect any of those projects without federal help?
Well, somebody who was proud to be part of that effort to get those resources to the state of New Jersey, you might imagine how pissed off I am about that, and also how short-sighted and stupid of a decision it was. I mean, the chaos out of this administration, as you know, is called chaotic for a reason because there's no plans, no strategies. So on the stuff that we're going to have to backfill, like you have to have EV. They're killing all these EV chargers, right, around our state, which, by the way, makes no sense. You need an EV infrastructure to be able to have EV vehicles or electric vehicles, right? I mean, I have an electric vehicle. You got to go around. You got to charge the thing if you want to drive around the state in places. You can't not have electric vehicle chargers. We got resources for that. I'm very proud of fighting to get that done. And yeah, they're messing with them now, and we're going to have to backfill some of those things. But again, this goes back to right now the fight that's happening on all of these things. Some things they're just saying they want to cut. They're holding up, and we're in a fight with them because we in Congress allocated those resources, and they're just saying we don't want to put it out. And that's the battle you're seeing right now that's taking place in the court on a lot of these fronts.
232 lawsuits involved?
Yeah, probably and counting by the hour. Yeah, and the courts are busy.
If you win, you're going to have 3.5 years to deal with the Trump administration. How are you going to do that?
My approach all along, and you mentioned that I have been co-chair of Problem Solvers Caucus, I believe in getting stuff done, right? That's always my approach. And my approach is, I'll work with anyone if you want to help Jersey families. Like, I'm there, I'll be with you, right? You want to do something good for Jersey? Great. You mess with Jersey? I'm going to mess with you. And I think that's how we should approach this administration. Hey, listen, and by the way, Governor Murphy's doing the same thing. If there's something you want to do to help us and work with us and give us something, great. You want to mess with us? I'll see you in court, or I'll see you on the schoolhouse steps. Like, I think should be our approach.
How do you rate Governor Murphy?
I think he's done a great job. And I think there's so much to build on. I mean, of course, we don't agree on everything, but I think, if you look on many fronts, and including many of the fights he's taken on right now, I think he's doing a really good job.
Fun fact, it's Republicans' turn. The state of New Jersey, in the history of the state, has never elected a governor of the same party consecutively.
Yeah.
It's always a Republican, a Democrat, a Republican. It's the Republicans' turn. Why do you think a Democrat can win this time?
Listen, I'm as shocked that the country elected a guy who was impeached twice. That's never happened. So, you want to talk about, I think the reality is this. People want to know that you are going to make their lives better and that you are going to fight for Jersey and fight for them and get their back. And I think right now, and I'll just talk for me, explaining to them with not only specifics, but talking to them about, I am going to be obsessed with making their lives more affordable so they can afford to raise their kids in our great state. They can afford to retire in our state. And that to me is the most important thing, so that I can do everything we humanly can to make sure they can stay here. But we got to get taxes down. We got to get costs down. And these other guys, they're just going to keep bowing to the extremists and to Trump and to his chaos. And people don't want chaos. They want common sense, someone who's going to get stuff done for them. And that's the best argument for why I believe we're the best ones to keep running this state.
Some of the other candidates for governor suggested you're too conservative, you're not progressive enough. How do you answer that?
Well, I don't know. You should go look at some of the people who have attacked me in the past. Like, look at my campaign. Sometimes they tell me that I'm too close to Nancy Pelosi. They run all these ads that. Sometimes they say I'm too close to the other side. Again, my answer, I do what's best for Jersey. There's a reason I think, and I'm very proud with a great team. I won my last race by 12 points. Harris won my district by 1 point, right? And I think we're really able to make a case to everybody that if you want somebody who gets stuff done, I'm the guy to hire to help you get your back. It's not about me. It's about what I'm going to do to fight for them.
Here's a question. Your constituents generally have, this is a very purple area you represent, purple going red. If Congress, if New Jersey loses you in Congress, the chances of your being replaced by a Republican are good.
Well, actually, the good news is the district was heading the other way, and that's because I think we've shown people that common sense means you want to hire a Democrat. If you want someone to get stuff done, you want to hire a Democrat. If you want lower taxes and more affordability, you hire me and a Democrat. And I think the good news is we've got a lot of great people in my area where I live, and I'm excited for the future. And I think, by the way, around our state, we've got a lot of great Democrats running, and that's good for the party and good for the state of New Jersey.
Josh Gottheimer,
thank you so much.
Really
much. Enjoyed that. Thank you.
I want to thank you so much for taking the time to watch the interviews with Mary Alice Williams. Are you looking to take the next step? Then come on and join the Montclair Dems. We're a statewide organization with a network of more than 12,000 volunteers across New Jersey. Please visit themontclairdems.com to start making an impact today, and thanks again for taking a few minutes to join us.